Next slide, please. Okay. So, a little bit difficult for me I have to watch this also. Same time. Oops, let's see. No, it's okay. Here you see sort of, it's like, like an arc that you can walk through, like a bow. And on one side is true parents and true father, and on the other is Jesus. So this is like a picture of their life, their providence, and their achievements. And they both go towards the same goal. That's why they're meeting at the top. But as you can see, Jesus was crucified there, as we know, and that is a little bit lower than true parents' picture there. So what I mean by that is that he didn't fulfill the holy marriage of the Lamb that's prophesied in the Bible. So that's why he only made the victory of resurrection. And true parents have now fulfilled this all the way up to the top. Yeah. Next slide, please. And this is something I have mentioned before. 1965, true father said, the purpose of coming Lord is someday all shall be him, like Christ. And of course, at that time he spoke, that was the coming of Christ was the main thing, he as the Messiah. But we could say today it's like true parents, all shall be like them, like true parents. Yeah. Next slide, please. So here's interesting, we can see when Jesus came, there was a long preparation. So Buddha, he came 600 years before Christ. And there was also Lao Tzu in China, Confucius, and Hinduism had developed. So the world was prepared for Jesus, not just to start Christianity, but there was a very broad spiritual foundation that Jesus came on. And then after Jesus was resurrected, we know that Islam was created by Muhammad about 600 years after that. So interesting to see how the world was prepared for a unifying Messiah. Next slide, please. And here we see true fathers. Most important years, he was born 1920. 1945, he started his, I call it first providence. He was married 1944, and that was a holy marriage. He says that marriage was prepared by heaven, and the first providence goes from 45 to 1952. But we also know that Christians rejected this first providence, so he had to go to severe suffering in Hungnam, and we also had the Korean War as a consequence. And finally, in 1960, we had the foundation for true parents. And now, after 2013, we have the time of Cheongilguk. Okay, next slide. So the three main providential preparations, we can see in the Bible, very important, Jesus' lineage. So all his, on the male side, all his forefathers are lined up to show that he is from the Jewish lineage. And that seemed to be very important because it's in the Bible. Yeah. And the second point, and that is then this goes both for Jesus at his time. We know there was a prepared Eve in Zachariah's family. So the new Adam and Eve had to accept this mission. And the same goes for true father then, and true mother. So there was a long preparation and then acceptance from them to take on this mission. And then the third point, to restore the word, the holy word. We have divine principle, we have several books. We have now the 3 holy books. And marriage, 1960, successful, true parents' blessing. And then we have an ongoing time for the blessing. Yeah. Next, please. And we can see the follow man. This is like, you say, the opposite to the 3 blessings. The Holy God's word was lost to be fruitful, to be one with God, and to be a channel from God. And then we have the holy God's lineage through holy marriage, and that was lost. And the holy God's cosmos, to have a good dominion over both the spiritual and the physical worlds. Okay, next slide. So I put this slide from the Quran yesterday, and I don't know if you hear me, Roswitha, but actually you said that you would have some Muslim guests there, so for their sake I wanted to connect also this with what it says in the Quran. It is we who created you and gave you shape, then we made the angels bow down to Adam, and they bow down. Not so Iblis. In Quran, Iblis is Satan. He refused to be of those who bow down. And then God, Allah, said, what prevented you from bowing down when I commanded you? And he answered, I am better than he. You created me from fire and him from clay. God, Allah said, get down from this place. It is not for you to be arrogant here. Get out if you are of the meanest of creatures. So, interesting here, we can see that Satan, or Iblis, he feels that he's better than Adam because he's made of fire. And this is interesting because the Messiah so it's a spiritual fire. In my mind, I'm thinking about a spiritual fight. Yeah. Okay, next slide. So here we can see that the fallen man was restored, and the Holy God's Word, the principle, true Father, he discovered 1935 to 44, and the Holy God's lineage we have successfully from 1960. And now we have true parents, true Mother on earth, true Father in the spirit world. And God's holy cosmos through the blessing is ongoing, 1960 and 1998. Why I mention 1998 is because that was the blessing of those religious founders in the spirit world, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius. And also those most evil people, Hitler and Stalin. They were blessed at the same time. Next slide, please. I have to check the time. I promised half an hour, yeah. This is interesting. Parallel between Jesus and true mother. We know that Joseph and Mary, they were warned that they had to protect Jesus, so that's why they fled to Egypt. You know, like King Herod, he wanted to kill all the babies because those three wise men who came to Jesus, they followed the star, they came to Jesus to honor him, and they asked, before they found him, they asked, where's the holy child, the new king in Israel? And of course, that threatens the present king, King Herod. So he killed all the children, and then the heavenly intervention protected Jesus and his father and mother by going to Egypt. So 1943, when True Mother was born, Satan threatened True Mother immediately after she was born. Her mother had her first bowl of seaweed soup and had fallen asleep. Satan with black horns approached the baby and with the intention of harming her, saying, if I let this girl be, the world will be at risk in the future. Therefore she should be killed now. Song A-Hong, however, boldly embraced the baby. She shouted, Satan, go away. The girl is my precious daughter. Who are you to come to try to kill her? So, interesting, we can see that Satan is trying to intervene, yeah? Like 2,000 years ago with using King Herod, and in this case, he wanted to get Song A-Hong to kill the baby. Yeah? Next slide. And this is from Hakya Han's biography, True Mother's biography. And Engaging in a fierce spiritual fight, Song Hye-hon continued to shout in a loud voice until her mother came running. She was astonished to hear what had happened. Song Hye-hon also wondered, why does Satan want to kill this baby? And resolved in her heart, I will raise her to become a pure and beautiful girl, untainted by the secular world. So it had the opposite effect. We can see that heaven wins. Heaven is stronger than the evil that's trying to prevent the goodness. Also interesting here, if you remember, this was 1943, true mother was born. 1944, true father married a Korean Christian young girl who was prepared by heaven, according to true father. So here we can see like a parallel providence. We can see that God and spiritual already knew the difficulties coming. So they had like you could say like a plan B. So you could say like plan A is what true father talks about 1945 to 52. That's first called first providence. And already there was like this backup plan with the true mother, present true mother. This is interesting. 1943 and 1944 was that first marriage. Yeah. Next slide, please. And this way I've shown several times. If I'm repeating myself, it's not that I think that you don't get the message. It's like I do this for future people who are coming to our church. We have to think like, have this concept when we do things like this also, that this can be for new people, never hearing this before. So be patient, like when I repeat myself, it's not really for you. I know that you have seen this. So interesting, spiritual, 1965, saying Christ will manifest again because Christ is eternal. So it's like a little bit like Jesus is like two personalities. He's Christ, he's the Messiah, but also he's Jesus of Galilee, the young Jewish boy who's accepting this mission. So the Messiah will come again. Christ will come again. And then we can as Christians, we can ask us this question. Will it be the historical Jesus that will come back? Or will it be the return of the mission of the sinless Adam and creating family salvation through divine couple, true parents of heaven of the humankind? And of course, we believe in the second concept. Christians still wait for Jesus to come down to earth. This is sort of, to me, very strange concept because Jesus died 2,000 years ago. That's also part of the Christian gospel. Jesus died and resurrected. But if he died, then it means that your physical body cannot resurrect. It's the spiritual resurrection. That is the most logical. Next slide, please. Okay. So, let's see. Okay, this is a little bit comparing then that indemnity has been paid, Christian indemnity, during 2,000 years. We know the history of parallels. Also, we know the First World War was indemnity for the Messiah to be born, 1920. Second World War was indemnity for the mission of the Messiah to start. And this is, now it's a little bit sensitive to say this, but we have had the present war in Ukraine, and I believe, but this is just my personal belief, that there is some indemnity involved in this, connected to the unification of Korea. If you think about the First World War, Second World War in this context, we could say even like a Third World War between the West, the free countries, and totalitarian Russia today's. It's somewhat similar to the Cold War. Yeah. So anyway, let's hope for a new world order under Messiah Christ and true parents. Yeah. Next slide, please. So if we ask any Christian when Jesus will return, probably they will answer that nobody knows, because even Jesus said, no one knows except the Father in heaven, when they asked him 2,000 years ago. But thanks to the law of indemnity and the revelation inside divine principle, we can now understand that enough indemnity must first be paid, and has been paid now. We have the three world wars. So hopefully, this is the last really larger global conflict that we have now, 2022. Next slide, please. Okay, so you could see there were three eternal God's blessing to all mankind. And the three blessings: to be fruitful, mature, ready to bear fruit like Jesus. He achieved that successfully. Multiply family. Jesus did not have a family. And in Christianity, they teach that this world is still under the dominion of Satan, but we have a door through Jesus that we can go through, so we can get spiritual support in this world. But this creation still needs to come under God's dominion. Yeah. Next slide, please. Oh, this is interesting. You remember 1935? Jesus, you could say, asked Myung to take on the mission of second coming of Christ. And he said, this is quote, I quoted this, "Let's go to the blessing," Jesus said. And according to Myung. So it's interesting that Jesus spoke already that time about the blessing. And why? Because that was the next step, that Jesus did not achieve in his life 2,000 years ago. So that was sort of in his mind, let's go to the blessing. Let's finish this job. Yeah. Next slide. And we know timing, providential timing. He met Jesus 1935. When he was 15 years old, our counting, 16 years old, Korean counting. And interesting, true father, in many speeches he talked about Adam and Eve. They fell at age 16. So there's an interesting age also to take on this mission. And here's interesting, because I always wondered why Korean counting is 1 year more. So I'm 72 now, according to Finnish and Swedish tradition. But in Korea, I would be called 73 years old now. And why is that? It's coming. Next slide, please. Finally, I got the explanation through Reverend Myung in USA. So he explained this way. In man, the live sperm needs 72 days to be made. In a woman, it needs 28 days for egg to come down. And a baby needs, as we know, 9 months. That's the same in Korea and in the West. 9 months, about 265 days. But if you add the egg, 28 days of egg production, then you get 10 months. So they talk about, in years, 1 year more, but also pregnancy is 10 months in Korea, not 9 months. And we have the answer there. And if we put these numbers together, very interestingly, 72, 28, 265, we get 365 days, and that's 1 year. So there you go. I never seen this before, so this was for me, now I understand it. Yeah. So Korean count from the start of man's sperm plus from the start of the mother's oval plus baby formation means 1 year to make a baby. In a way, it's logical if we start from day one of each element. Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, so actually when we talk about then sperm and egg, we could say that not only Jesus was rejected and killed on the cross, but his holy sperm. That was actually the foundation for the future mankind. The future lineage directly from Jesus and his wife was also killed. Next slide. Okay, so here we come to repeat the same thing, the three great blessings. And they were also, of course, also valid for Jesus, young Jesus. Next slide. Yeah, next slide. So we can see here that he did become fruitful because he became like a perfect human being. He said that he was one with God. Doesn't mean that he was God the creator, but he was one with God in heart. So God could work through Jesus fully, 100%. And all the miracles, all the healings he did with the power of God. God could manifest himself. And this goes also very much for true Father. Many miracles, many spiritual things took place that we don't know so much about. But in Korea in the 1950s, and also surely 1945, in the first providence. And then multiply, that was what Jesus really wanted. Now let's go to the blessing. That was on Jesus' mind, 1935. And was not fulfilled at his life. And then have dominion. And this is interesting to have dominion, because dominion means a spiritual concept and a physical concept. And I cannot avoid to come back to the situation in Ukraine with this third blessing, have dominion, because this is really what the leader in not only Russia, but all totalitarian regimes, they want physical control over the people. Yeah? And it's like opposite of having dominion with love. So the goal is God's love and God's heart actually should come into all mankind. So we are at the sort of final battle. The Bible also talks about the final battle, and we are really at that point. Next slide. Okay, so this is from True Father's Word also. I don't want to read the bottom part here. Jesus started his public mission at age 30, we know, and was Jesus to have married before that? Latest at 40 years of age. Because True Father also mentioned 1960, True Parents' blessing. That was the last year for this to be fulfilled. So he said it could not go longer than until 1960. And then he was 40 years old, 1920, 1960. With Jesus, we know that this didn't happen. Lacked support from his and Zachariah's family. He was forced to start his public mission only as adopted son, not as true parent. Yeah. So we are very grateful that we have true parents. It's like a successful story, success story, you could say. Yeah. Next slide, please. And this is quoting from Myung, I think it is. Yeah. Jesus died bearing the cross during the course of performing the mission of John the Baptist. So actually, Jesus had to go backward, you could say, like he came, and there was should have been a prepared foundation for Jesus through John the Baptist, but we know that he rejected Jesus, so that foundation crumbled and fell apart, and Jesus had to go to the desert and 40 days fasting, being tempted by the devil. That was to restore this foundation of John the Baptist that he could stand on. Thus, he was unable to completely fulfill his mission as a son. From his death until now, he has been working to restore the archangel. After restoring the archangel, he must go the way of the son. In this way, he has been seeking to go the way of servant and the adopted child. Jesus could not fulfill his mission as a legitimate son. Next slide. Jesus did not die on the cross as the Son. If he had been in the position of the Son, having spirit and body unity, becoming a victorious offering to God, there would have been no need for him to come again. He could not offer his total self. He could offer only half of himself. And when we say half of himself, I interpret this as he needed a wife. So husband and wife, they are really one unit, one unity. Should be one unit. And because he was alone, he could only offer his body. And, he lost his body and could offer only his spirit. So resurrection is spiritual, not physical. You can see from this word. This represents a level equivalent of the angelic realm in the spirit world. Yeah. Next slide, please. Adam and Eve should have received God's blessing and obtained recognition as the true parents of humanity, but they failed to accomplish this. They married without permission while still immature and did not begin the completion stage. In short, 1 year was prolonged to 1,000 years and 7 years to 7,000 years. We are indemnifying in this in 7 years. This is a 7-year course. Interesting, when I joined, 1979, if we count from 1960, so 1981 would be the last year of this 3 7-year courses. So the other members, they told me, Bengt, you have to hurry up because 1981, everything will be over. The world will be completely restored. And we know what happened with that. So anyway, so that was the expectation, 1979. Great expectation of everything going very, very, very quickly. Next slide. So here again, this is from True Father's Word. If Jesus had started at age 20, the period from age 33 to 40 would have been the third 7-year course. In this way, Jesus could have established the worldwide foundation by age 40 as true parent. However, because the people did not accept him and he died, that period remains in the Bible as 7 years of great calamity and disturbance. So I think this connects to our situation today also in a way, because we have this heavenly tribal messiahship that we're supposed to fulfill, and that could affect the world situation also, I believe. So if we quickly fulfill this, it can restore the goodness of this world situation, global situation. Next slide. Okay. So I think you know these years, and they were nice on my computer. I don't know, Samuel, if you have, do you have full screen on your computer, Samuel? F5? No, it's no difference. Okay. If you tried F5, doesn't seem to work. Okay. Let's take next slide then, please. So here we see True Father in sort of praying position. Divine messianic thoughts and blessing will create a new world. And Jesus said the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. This is interesting. This is very, very interesting. So if Jesus forgave sins, and he did that, but there was no new lineage. So if we look at his Christian history, we know that Jesus forgave people their sins, and he said, go and do not sin again. But still, the children that was born was not without original sin. So this forgiving sins had a different value, you could say, when Jesus did that, and when true parents are doing them now. Okay, next slide. Okay. Okay, so here's my thought. I emphasize, has authority on earth. Since this was long before crucifixion, why did not Jesus say, will have after crucifixion? If the crucifixion was the goal, he could have expressed it that way. When Jesus lost his divine physical body, he also lost the ability to forgive original sin, physical salvation. So this is like a core teaching of unification movement, that we have a new start. We are being forgiven original sin, and our children also without original sin. They are not perfect. They are not sinless. Very important to remember. But we can work. It's the root sin that is removed, and we can ourselves, and together with our spouse and our family and our friends and our tribe, we can take care of the other sins. Next slide, please. 2 more minutes. I'll stop. How Jesus have forgiven the original sin, have married children and grandchildren. That is the core message that we have to give to Christians. Why we need a new Messiah, why we need true parents, and why is not Jesus' salvation enough? Because the original sin is still there. And this is not speculation. This is a clear vision for all Christians today to think about. The real return of Jesus, return of Christ, it is a change of blood lineage, engrafting messianic branch in us as a holy K word. And here I want to emphasize, you see the picture there. So this is like, now I have to go away from here. This is like a good branch. You see that it's no longer the flower. It's engrafted on a tree with good roots, but still we symbolize this tree that is being sort of cut off. So we engraft a branch from true parents in us. I'm mentioning this because in some speeches the translation is wrong. You will see this in several speeches. They have translated it wrong, that we should be engrafted in true parents. But what happens if we, fallen human beings, this branch, if we are engrafted into plants, it will grow into a fallen person. So it's the opposite. So it's important to understand this engrafting process. So we get true parents engrafted spiritually in us through the Holy One ceremony, through the blessing, and through the blessing words. I'll stop here because I promised Joseph half an hour, so please join me in a prayer. Dearest Heavenly Parent, we are gathered here, not so many people, but still we believe this is your most holy community. And you have so much hope for us, you have so much hope for our tribal messiahship, that we can reach out, that we can build a community. We can spread the principle, all the good speeches, all the holy words from you and from through true parents. And we want to support each other, strengthen each other, and love each other. Love was the fuel for Christianity to take off and to be so successful during 2,000 years. So we pray for this to happen again. Let the love of the good spirit will come to us and lift us into the heavenly kingdom of Chongelguk. I pray for peace on earth. I pray for peace in Ukraine, Myanmar, Sudan, many places in the world there's conflict. Not only in countries, but also in families. There is fighting between husband and wives, children, parents, parents and children. And we want to heal this. We want your ideal world to come about. This I pray now with brothers and sisters here, Maunala, as blessed central families are Jew. Thank you.